It's Christine Wilson and Saphira Galoob, and you'll thank us later. Tune in every week and hang out with us because we're a lot of fun.
And no topics off the record, we decided. We are open to talking about everything together with a bit of a sense of humor, a lot of self-forgiveness, a lot of grace, and always being wiser on the other end. Bring it on, girls and boys.
You know what? You'll thank me later that I'm telling you about this. You'll thank me. They're going to hate us, Saphira. It's going to be nuts.
Well, greetings all. Great to see everybody today.
Hello.
I think we're all back in one place. It's the first time in a few weeks that we are not traveling, not outside of our home environment, which gives me a lot of stability and calmness. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. Well, I'm about to travel tomorrow morning, and I've been fighting off a cold this week, and I think I'm winning. So I'm feeling really good because I'm so excited. I'm going to opening weekend at Dollywood this weekend.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
big bucket list thing. It's supposed to have
wow.
storms the whole day that we have our tickets for. So I've got to figure that out. But otherwise, I'm excited.
I've got my eye on Nashville. There will be a time when I leave DC, and Nashville is one of the places I'm looking at. Charlotte's one of the places. So you have to report back.
Well, this is Knoxville. I'm going to Knoxville.
Oh, Dollywood's in Knoxville. Oh,
Dollywood is actually in Pigeon Forge, which is...
I always have something to learn from you, Christine. And it's something that the rest of the world knows that I'm the last to know, which is fantastic.
Well, if you really want to learn about Tennessee and Pigeon Forge, you got to have a call with Nicole, because Nicole has been handling a bunch of social media accounts for various resorts and hotels and all sorts of RV parks and marinas all over Tennessee. I won't name names of the brands, but she may have learned more about Pigeon Forge than the rest of us, right, Nicole?
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so if I end up Tennessee bound, you're going to be my subject matter expert.
Yeah. So I'll go, yeah, and I think we've found that it's pretty interesting. I have been to Nashville. I have been to Memphis, but I've never been to Knoxville. I've also been to Swanee, Tennessee. So I've been to Chattanooga. I've got some more.
I love all the names. I love all the names.
I think all Native American, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there's some really interesting genesis of the tribes.
Yeah.
I'm actually really happy that we chose the topic today. Today we're going to be talking about therapy. And it's interesting, as we were preparing for this podcast, Christine and I were remarking that when we were growing up, having therapy in your life was actually fairly stigmatized. I remember the first time I went to a therapy session, it was after my sister died and I was 20. And my parents had this therapist who her name was Cease Jefferson, and she was a licensed counselor and family therapist. I don't know what her credentials were at the time, but my parents attributed their time with her as saving their marriage, as giving them space and a place to recalibrate. And my parents are in their 80s and they've been married since they were 20. So it's been a few years. But I do recall that my first relationship with therapy was so crucial because I remember I was flailing emotionally and I was flailing in my heart, and it anchored me in a pedagogy. It anchored me in a consistent place and a consistent way to organize, convey, and really calibrate my thoughts and emotions. It didn't make them go away, but it gave me a mechanism to process them, and I felt less insane. And I really began to understand what my relationship was with bringing myself back to an active, healthy state of mind was. So therapy for me didn't make the sadness go away. It didn't make the loss go away. It gave me tools to interface with the sadness and interface with the loss. So it wasn't my demon, and it wasn't kind of basically undermining me at every turn. So I don't know if, Christine, you want to talk about your very first relationship with therapy before we get in, or Courtney and Nicole, if you've had first experiences, but I think first experiences are very telling.
I think so. And, they do say that relationships after the loss of a child are very high divorce rates. And
suicide rates.
And suicide rates. Yeah.
I'll tell you something. More than 90% get divorced, and over 50% one parent commits suicide. It is remarkable. It is a remarkable has a remarkable destruction.
Yeah. It's so great that your parents found a therapist that was so instrumental. And that, I mean, I honestly when I hear you talk about your sister and the loss of your sister, I can hear a lot of ways that you talk about it that I think are probably anchored in what you learned in that therapy when that happened, how you can speak about it and how you can, not break down, but you can feel the feelings. I mean, you can be very emotional in talking about it, but you can see that you've created coping mechanisms for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, the reason I brought this up and I wanted to talk about it is because I just started back in therapy 2 weeks ago, and I had taken a nice long break, probably well over a decade. I also have a bachelor's in psychology, which makes me really dangerous because I understand the very, very basics, but nothing into real deep. But I tend to act like I know. I could be like a licensed therapist. Um, and I think one of the things that is one of my pitfalls is that I think I've learned everything I need to learn from a therapist, and then I shut it off. And it takes me getting to a point where I'm like, the water is so close to drowning me that I'm like, "Oh my God, I need a therapist, like I need a life preserver." And one of the things I'm remembering right now is that they don't have to be a life preserver when you're drowning. They can be a nice boat for you to float in all the time so that you don't drown when things get hard. So that was a really big aha moment when 2 weeks ago, Oj looked at me and he was like, "You are really flailing and you are spinning in circles, and I can see you can't get a grasp on all these feelings you're having. And I think you need to go find a way to do that. Whatever it is for you, Christine, I'm here to support you. If it's talking to me, talking to a therapist, doing whatever you need to do." But it took that outside person watching me waving in distress for help to make me realize that I was about to drown. And I, can't say, oh, 2 weeks later, everything's perfect, but it was amazing how in 1 hour my clarity was reset. I zoomed back out of the picture. I was so zoomed in that I could not see the bigger picture for the life of me. And I was so hyper focused on one stressor that everything else was out of focus. And when I came back, when she pulled me back out to look at the big picture, it was like, oh my gosh, wow. This is so different than how I was perceiving things. Um, and so I think that was just really, really important for me to bring up because I think for our age, Saphira, the stigma you were mentioning of therapy, we still carry it a little bit. I grew up in a household though where mental illness, therapy, all of that was discussed very openly. And my first round with therapy was in college when I hit a pretty bad depression. I think I mentioned this, living in a basement with no windows. We now know I've been diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder. It was not a good place for me in the dark. And I was not only did I go to therapy, but I also tried medication for the first time. And I didn't stay on medication for very long, but it was enough to pull me out of the deep, dark place I was in and to create a place where I could utilize therapy. I've always done cognitive behavioral therapy, and I haven't tried any others, but I'm curious to see if you guys, have, or maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the other therapies that are out there. I don't know. Have you guys ever looked in or explored anything outside of kind of your traditional cognitive behavioral therapy?
Well, I mean, the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, I think they call it EMDR. I have not done that, but I do have friends who have done it. I just haven't experienced it before. Have you guys ever experienced that?
I haven't. And it does seem really, really interesting. And I can see Courtney and Nicole kind of shaking their heads too.
Yeah.
It is one of those things where I'm like, I'm open to trying other things, like, are there other types of therapy that, I might need to take a look at? And, I think the EDMR is probably, I think it's more used to treat PTSD and trauma, so it helps you recall memories and process stress. And, the more and more that I talk to people the more I realize that there are a lot of people walking through life with PTSD.
Mm.
And it's not just soldiers. It's not just child, victims of horrific acts. There are a lot of ways that PTSD can manifest, and it does seem like EMDR would be a really logical therapy choice for those folks. We have a woman that used to work for us named Anna. She's an amazing writer, and she has started working for a place near where she lives that does equine therapy, so horse therapy. And she rode horses and rides horses. And I thought, what an interesting way to go about it. And I asked her a little bit about it, and she said that, it uses active and engaging experiences to help patients. They basically can process their emotions, they can gain insights, and they can also develop coping mechanisms. So I think there's other ways that you can do that, things like art therapy, music therapy.
I can tell you dance therapy. I
Yeah.
definitely know that in my relationship with working with women, particularly women, if part of the stress is your relationship with your body,
Yeah.
I know that my work in Middle Eastern dance and belly dance with adult women, that was a mechanism for a lot of women reclaiming their relationship with their body and their relationship with their voice. Um, so and finding growth. I mean, I think part of what therapy can really do is it can help instigate growth and emotional growth. And as middle, am I upper middle age? What am I now? I know in French I'm a femme d'âge certaine, which is old lady syndrome.
Oh,
Yeah.
stop it.
Well, no. I'm going to be older,
We're
hopefully.
not calling ourselves old
Oh
lady.
no, femme d'âge
No.
certaine, a woman of a certain age. But more so that it's harder as you get into different later decades to create growth opportunities for yourself. And so I really do think therapy can help you with emotional growth. But then when you're in equine therapy or music therapy or dance therapy or art therapy, those can be triggers for growth, and those kind of mechanisms. So I have a question about your therapy, particularly
Yeah.
folks who have, because I'm actually looking for a therapist, and my very dear friend who is a therapist, she's one of my dance students, has found me one. So I'll tell you what my reluctance is, and maybe we can actually use this as a way to kind of help me over this hump. So I know that it takes a while for the
Hmm.
therapist to get to know you.
Hmm.
Um, and so I know if you don't find the right one to start with, because you have to give it many sessions, and then if it doesn't work, you have to start over. And so I'm like, I just want to find the right one now.
Right.
And so how did you manage knowing that the relationship between you and the therapist had to be right? Um, and how did you kind of go in saying, "Hi, my name is Christine Wilson. I got to talk to you about some stuff." And you only have an hour. I am. It's not that I'm reluctant, but I just want it to be productive from the moment I walk into their office.
So with this go around, I think the initial appointment was so like, oh my God, I have to figure this out today. This issue, this problem. What am I going to do? I'm in panic. Help me right now. So we jumped right in. I didn't even share names. I was like,
She said,
using it as
"Okay,
like,
are you married? Do you have kids? Like, none of, do you have your own business? Nothing." Okay.
I gave her the bare bones basics of what she needed to know to get me to a place of calm that day. And I'll be honest, I think if I had like interviewed her as my therapist, I might have been like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to totally click. But the fact that in 1 hour, she helped me dissect that immediate panic and pull back, I said, okay, I want to meet again. That was, I'm like leaving with like, I felt like somebody had literally taken these weights off my shoulders and was walking next to me with them. It was
Yeah.
like in that 1 hour. Did I feel like she and I would be best friends and bosom buddies? No. But I also like that she was a little older than I am. She had a little more life perspective. She'd been a therapist for a long time. I knew there was probably nothing I was going to say to her that she hadn't heard before. That gave me a lot of comfort. Um, and when we met this week, it was like kind of like we had to step back. I mean, I was like telling her my family members' names, these people that I had already told her very personal things about. And now I was telling her their names and their ages. And because I wasn't in panic anymore. I was more of like, okay, let's go back and use practical steps. Let's talk about, some of these bigger pictures. And, and then we were like almost to the end and I was like, huh, what else do I want to talk about? And I was like, I don't really have anything else that feels emergency, which is great. That's when I need to learn not to walk away and to stay and to start working on the bigger pieces, right? The things that are just consistent through my life that get me to those panic places, like not listening to my body, not taking care of myself, not letting, using smart outlets for my frustrations. I want to talk. I mean, there's so much more I want to talk about, ways that I can help build my relationship with my husband, that he can also be part of my coping mechanisms more. All of these other things that are just more of like less emergency, but just ground level things that I need to do to build my resilience overall. So, I don't know if a year from now she'll still be the person that I'm talking to, but for right now, the help that I needed in that emergency moment came, and I'm going to keep seeing where it goes. But I do think if someone well, so one of my best situations with therapy is that Oj actually sought out a psychiatrist when he was a young lawyer, very stressed out, working insane hours, really was just like at the end of his rope. And he was, his firm gave him a psychiatrist name. Started seeing him, and they were doing both medication and therapy, and he really liked him. And at one point, I was like, maybe we should go in together and do a little marriage counseling. And we did. And we both really liked him. And he really was like one of those people who would be like, he'd let us talk and then he'd be like, okay, here's how I see it. And he didn't do that whole like, you figure it out thing. It was like, and we really, really liked him for a long time. And I think he really helped set some more even playing field for us. There did come a point where that psychiatrist oftentimes would be like, Oj, or he called him Joe, his real name. Joe, you need to step up and do blah, blah, blah. Joe, Christine has a really good point here. Joe, and I could just see how we were losing Oj in that, because he would side with me too much, even though I think he did side with me too much because I was always correct. I mean, it's hard to be me, always correct. Anyway, long story short, that did start to break down that situation. And I did see him on my own also. But then he retired, and we always say, we're like, God, he knew everything about us. Like, we never had to go in and be like, here's the backstory. My mom's, when I was 5, did this. Like, we'd already told him everything. So I do think there is a lot of value in building a long-term relationship with a therapist where you don't have to go and give backstory. You don't have to go and explain why you might have a hang up or why you have this weird familial situation or any of that. And we saw him for many, many years. And that was I really liked that I could walk in and be like, today's issue is because blah, blah, blah. And he knew all of it. So yeah, I think you got to go in with it though, Saphira, and you just got to say, here's what I'm working through today. And if you walk out and you feel more befuddled or like they didn't connect with you at all, okay, move on. But if you get anything out of it, here's the other thing. You and I I find that I do this sometimes. I'm ready to jump the gun and tell the answer before I give her a chance to talk. I'm like, this is my problem. And I know it's because blah, 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 blah. And she's like, whoa, whoa, woo, woo. Like, give me a chance to respond.
Right. Did you want my existence?
Yeah. So part of it is you got to shut up and take this outside information in without analyzing yourself in the moment and trying to like almost do both roles. Because that's what we're already doing every day. We're already doing both roles in our head.
Right there, and then you race over the other chair and be like, tell me what you think. Let me tell you what I think.
Exactly. So that is, I think you got to go in with an open mind. And here's the biggest thing, Saphira. So what if you go once
Yeah.
So
So
what?
this is absolutely because you guys know I had a bit of a rough patch over the past 6 weeks. And I'm definitely like the emotional side is definitely improved, but it is, I am still dissecting why I had such a deluge of emotion. And I definitely would like to work through it with someone. So I'm committed to doing it and I will report back. I'll report back. And I will say I'm really happy that you and Oj did that together over the years. I've never gone to therapy with my husband because he refuses to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely is like my husband's totally anti-therapy. And so I have gone in our marriage just for both of us. So I don't know, Courtney and Nicole, if you guys have ever tried it out, but better to go when things aren't stressed.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing with your generation is you guys aren't as afraid of
Yeah,
therapy. I mean,
tell us, Courtney and Nicole, like, don't you guys even have like, we always talk about different little names. I mean, I hear my son make these, mentee bee, like stressy depressy, like give me sock vacation for going on. Like, it's like almost so flippant about it. But and we may even want to like break that down on what mentee bee means. Mental breakdown, is that right? Is that what they say?
Yeah,
Do people really say stressy depressy? Is that really what kids like? Is it really what you kids are saying these days?
maybe not Courtney and I, but it's definitely out there.
like 10 years younger, maybe
Yeah.
15 years younger.
Yeah, I for sure have never said grippy sock vacation, but that's just me.
Is that like the grippy socks you wear in the hospital, like the mental
Yes.
hospital?
That,
Oh,
yeah.
Hey
wow.
guys, sorry I was gone. I was on a grippy sock vacation.
Yeah.
Wow. But that's, I mean, it is, I mean, do you find that it's maybe younger than you that is even more open to talking about therapy, or do you feel like people your age talk about it?
I think people our age talk about it. I think younger, maybe even more so. Like, I think we're kind of in that in between. Like, Courtney, I don't know if this is true for you, but like for me, it took my parents being the ages they are now to be more open to therapy. So it wasn't a conversation that was had in my house. So it's like my generation being more open to it is still teaching my parents' generation to be more open to it. So we're probably more of like a gray area middle
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like the younger generation is so casual about it that they have slang terms for it, which, I mean, Godspeed.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, we talked the other day about gratitude and like doing a gratitude journal, which I have not been very good about doing. But like, do any of you guys just journal in general? Because that's a big part of therapy. No, none of us are journalers.
No.
Yeah, so I was in this class in high school for 2 years, and it was like a big deal to get to be in. It was called peer counseling. We didn't really counsel other peers, although we did a lot of talking about counseling and therapy within the group. And then we would meet with elementary school students twice a week. We would go and spend like an hour with them, and they were kids that were sort of identified as maybe having tough home lives or things like that. We would spend time with them and we would do an activity and sort of just let them talk to us. And we were we were not therapists, but we were trained to be listeners and buddies with these children. But one of the activities that they had us do was we had to keep a journal and I did it for junior and senior year. So I have journals for my junior and senior year of high school. And it was really, and so your teacher would read them. You could fold the page over if you didn't want it to be read, if you wanted to do something private. And mine are really interesting. And, you could see the fluffier ones where I was doing the activity to get it done and turn it in. But the ones where I was more reflective on, junior and senior year of high school there's a lot going on in your life. And I look back and I'm like, it's a really interesting thing that I had that. And I'm like kind of wondering why I'm reluctant to journal now, when it is so cool to look back on my life and have that insight. And I also think it was helpful because our teachers in the class would write us messages back, to the things that, we could say, like, my boyfriend broke up with me and I'm so upset and I don't know what to do. And blah, 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 blah. And they would almost write therapy back in the journal. So I was looking back at all the really thoughtful things that these two teachers would write to us. And we could also in group, we would sit in a group in the class and talk. And I don't remember it ever feeling like we were going to be betrayed by anyone in the class. I think it was a very, like, what happens in this class is in this classroom and it cannot be shared in the hallways. God knows how that worked with high school kids. But I had a cousin who committed suicide during this time, and it was very impactful in my life. And I did not go to therapy, but I did use that group and that class very much as my therapy. And it was, I'm very close with my cousins. We grew up like brothers and sisters, and that was really, really important to me that that class was there for me and that I was able to process those emotions and those feelings with that group. So maybe that really was kind of my first experience with therapy was in high school. Yeah. So I think the other thing that we talk about sometimes, Saphira, is obviously there's the talking and the getting out our feelings and our emotions. But I do think sometimes it's also, just doing other things in your life. Like we talk about self-care, the other things that are therapeutic for you. And I think some people, just taking a walk, clearing your head, not scrolling social media, those can be some of the biggest things that I think, and you have to find the thing that's good for you. What is that thing, that self-care that helps you? But if you don't add it in and prioritize it, I think that becomes, part of the problem.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's so, I mean, I definitely, because I just was recently in it, when you're having a hard time, it is really hard to do things that are not kind of in the rut of having a hard time. It is so hard. If a person already struggles with getting themselves on a walk or going to take a yoga class or doing an exercise class, and they're in an emotionally stressed place,
Mm-hmm.
or a really complicated situation, it's even harder to initiate that activity. And so it's kind of a recipe for not being able to get yourself out of it. The other thing that I really noticed, and I remember, this is kind of this is kind of ties into other podcasts we've done. When I was in this really stressed situation and I went to therapy, the very first thing my therapist, I remember it so clearly. She goes, "How much sleep have you had over the last?"
Right.
And I hadn't been sleeping. And she literally assigned me a sleep regime for a week. And then we started working on my kind of the emotional trauma that I was experiencing. And I actually, just in this situation, I know that depression and sleep kind of live hand in glove. I mean, I'm not a professional on this, but just having raised a daughter who is depressed. But I also think being able to cope with difficult things in your life is very, it's hard on your body, it's hard on your head. So getting like, or being sleep deprived is absolutely, it's like not having nutrition for your soul, right?
Yes.
So I really do think that I think you, Christine, were saying that the research is out now that if you look at the eating, or the nutrition and exercise and sleep is the fundamental pillar. So it
Yeah.
shouldn't be a surprise that as we are kind of making decisions about our mental health and our emotional health, that sleep serves as such a crucial, it's just so crucial to have enough of it so that you can think clearly and operate clearly.
I'm going to go back to one thing that I brought up many episodes ago. And this was actually, I took a class that this was the textbook, and just a reminder. And Oj, when he first started seeing that psychiatrist, assigned him this exact book. And when my dad got sick and my mom was struggling taking care of him and her emotional well-being, I recommended it, but it's called the Feeling Good Handbook. And it's a workbook. It's a book with exercises and workbook in it. And I do think, I go back to it, there's probably a more modern replacement of this book, but fundamentally, I think what it really gets to is kind of all of the skills that you need to build that are fundamental for dealing with anxiety and depression. And when you do those activities, when you're not in a deep, dark hole, you can stave off the really big moments of depression and anxiety because you've worked the exercises and the muscles and the skills in this handbook so that you can get ahead of it. So it really helps you, recognize what it is that like mood swings. Like half of your mood swings that people have, are me with hormones, could be hormones, but a lot of it is because you're feeling anxiety or you're feeling things inside that you don't know how to verbalize or process. And so it affects the way you behave and how you outwardly express yourself. So being able to recognize your mood swings and also use techniques to help moderate that, that's what this book actually does. So I will just put that plug out there for this book again. I think I have mine down in the basement. I should have grabbed it, and I should go back because I think I still have mine from college when probably I did that workbook, and it was like, it's really hard for me to be in a good mood when I drink for 4 nights in a row and don't get any sleep. um yeah. So
Ding, 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 ding.
yeah. One of the things that's in the book that I think is really, really great, and a lot of people, I think all 4 of us can use this because this is one of my biggest hot buttons that I'm not good with, and I'm going to go back to it. But in the Feeling Good Handbook, there's actually a whole technique on how to handle criticism. That is one of my worst. I am not good at criticism. The minute I feel criticism coming at me, I get all hardened up and I put up the wall and I'm ready to fight. I'm like,
I will tell you something. If anybody out there thinks I've like some sort of like figured it out, you know, when criticism comes my way, I shut down. And I don't even put myself in a situation if I think I'm going to be criticized. Like, I'm criticism averse. Yeah.
Well, then I need to grab the book and we need to actually look at the part on how to handle criticism. There's another part in there that I remember is also really good. It's on how to deal with guilt. And, you know, I think it's interesting how guilt plays itself out in so many interesting ways. Like guilt if you didn't do something, guilt if you have more than what other people have, guilt if you feel like, you know, you let someone down, guilt. I mean, guilt is such an interesting thing that can really affect our behavior. And I think is kind of an unnecessary thing when so much of the time it really has nothing to do with anything the intention behind anything that we've done. So, yeah. So Saphira, okay, I'm going to say, I would love for you to make that appointment.
I will. I have to give a shout out to my dear friend who is she's a master's in psychology. I think that's her credential because, there's all different credentialed types of professionals that you can visit. And so she did all the research for me and now I just need to do it. I'd been traveling. But I've got an app, I'm not an appetite, but like I'm hungry to go see somebody.
Yeah. I do think that's important what you just brought up, right? So psychiatrist is an MD, somebody that can prescribe medication and may not be what you need if you're just, and that can be much more expensive. There are also lots of, there's like psychiatric nurse practitioners now, which is kind of
I did not realize that. Yeah. And insurance there's probably a broader coverage for insurance for that. Yeah.
Well, and a psychiatric nurse practitioner can actually prescribe medication also. And so but then you can come down, there's licensed therapists, licensed social workers, there's psychologists who have, a PhD. There are those with a master's degree. There are lots of different levels of therapy. And it really depends on if you're going to, what you're going to need in the long run. Yeah. For me, I find that my day-to-day, I need to talk to someone once a week and go through things, can be a therapist or a psychologist. It's, someone in those levels. But I do appreciate the psychiatric care with my medication. So I do take Lexapro for anxiety. And Lexapro does downgrade over its lifespan. So there are conversations to have, even if you're on it, it's doing great. And then eventually, I've now been on it probably going on 15 years. There are conversations to have with my psychiatrist about medication and how to maintain the levels that I'm on. So also new SSRIs come out, new medications come out. So there's all sorts of things and conversations to have. Sometimes you can move your medication management to like your general practitioner or your OBGYN if you don't need that level of medication management. But I do think it's great to have a psychiatrist that you can talk to. The other thing, insurance is a really big conversation in all of this. So many practitioners are out of pocket and you have to either so they're out of network. You have to send to your insurance for reimbursement. But there are plenty of providers out there now, I think with things like BetterHelp and other things that have come about where they do offer coverage under insurance. And so I will say if the biggest worry and stress is money and how you're going to pay for therapy, I think we will make sure we provide some resources for you all to be able to find some options for therapy that don't have to be expensive. And there are even some options for uninsured folks. So it is not something that should only be available to the wealthy, because it is something, especially people that are living, in situations where money is very tight and they feel the stresses of that. Therapy can be really essential and should not be looked at as a luxury, but actually as a survival piece. If you are really living in a situation where day by day things are very challenging, making decisions on which bills to pay and who to feed and all of that, therapy can be really important for those folks. So we will definitely provide some resources for everyone to be able to find the therapy that they need. And it does take a little bit of work sometimes, for sure, to find the people.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think that's an outstanding way to kind of close up, because I do think when folks are thinking about the two constraints that people are thinking about to, engage in this, kind of this I don't use the word self-help because it's not mental health. Prioritization is the constraint of time and the constraint of money.
Mm-hmm.
And now, with online, people can do that therapy via an online session. And if what you're telling me, Christina, that there are more options available for people's insurance, then it may just be, because I think what I hear you saying is super important, which is just because it was hard 5 years ago or 10 years ago with your insurance, don't presume that you're going to come into the same obstacle now, that things have really evolved and there's just more opportunity. I mean, I was reading in prep for this, like 84% of therapists are experiencing dramatic increases. And it's not even just post-pandemic, it's just kind of all the new realities that are post-pandemic for people, dealing with family, dealing with
being out of work,
dealing with changing political environments. I mean, I got to tell you, I know we touched on this, but my friends in DC and my friends who are kind of working either adjacent to this federal government or within this federal government, it is so stressful. And they're stressed at their homes. We are stressed in social situations. People are stressed watching the news. Like, it is a whole new level and layer of navigating through things feeling disrupted.
Well, I mean, half my neighborhood is out of work. It is really bad. So I've watched the stress. You can see it on their faces. So hopefully they will all find the places that they need to go to get the help that they need, because I'm feeling for them for sure. All right, guys. Well, hopefully this was a nice little therapy session for you all. It was for me.
100%. You can send
all right. Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, we appreciate it. We know you'll thank us later.